At the end of war, when I heard the imperial edict, I was at a relative's house. Due to evacuation, my family had moved away from the city. As far as the imperial edict is concerned, to me it was nothing more than a strange blank feeling, beyond excitement. It was not necessarily something that was anticipated. Where was the world that I lived up until now going, and how would it change? That was too strange for me to bear. So when the war ended, when we lost the war, although that world was expected to collapse, the trees, the green around me, was still bathing in the strong light of summer. And I saw that, while living in a normal family, I had my family's faces around me. We had a low dining table, our everyday life. I thought that all this was really very strange. But the young academic scholars were saying, "Our time has come, now begins the new time of intellectual reconstruction." In other words, it may sound as an exaggeration, but it was a situation where people danced in joy. When I was 20, the military authorities, and their extreme power, ended up experiencing a destructive defeat. At first it looked like for the next 20 years, a period of peace and safety followed. In the long run, it was thanks to Japan's industrialization. But in the spiritual domain, there wasn't anything worth to be called intellectual reconstruction. Now I am 41, as one who had faced the close of war in my 20s. One of my aims was to think of how would my life unfold from then on. I think that the fierce sunlight of the summer of August 15th, that kept shining on the trees, and still does, a sunlight that inside the boundaries of that point of time, didn't change a bit, will always exist in my heart. Rilke has written that modern people cannot die romantically. They die in a hospital like a bee in a cell. In today's death, be it death by illness, or by traffic accident, there is no drama. We live in times where the heroic death doesn't exist. I remember a book called Hagakure of the 18th century. That era was similar to the present. People had woken up from the dream of the Sengoku era. The warriors trained in the path of Buddha, but there was no such thing as glorious death in the battlefield. There was corruption and expense accounts. And like today's so-called IVY group, there existed similar elements like this among the samurai of that period. It was then that the writer of Hagakure kept tirelessly explaining that you have to choose death before all, while he himself lived a long life and died on the tatami mat. So even though he was a warrior, he kept living with images of death in his heart, unable to grab the chance to die. Today's young people also seek a thrill. It's not that the fear concerning the time of one's death does not exist, but there is no tension about the fact that death is the presupposition of life. So while at work, maybe it's the boredom of life. It's only natural to feel some vileness in the fact that people only live for themselves. Life is a strange thing. People are not strong enough to live and die for their own sake. People usually think of some ideal, some cause. So they soon grow tired of just living for their own sake. And it is certain that when it comes to death, they need a cause. This is what was once called a noble cause. To die for a noble cause is the most splendid, heroic way to die. But now there is no such thing as a noble cause. It is due to the democratic system. Democracy needs no such thing as a noble cause. So if you do not find self-transcending values in your heart, you are in a psychological state where your sole existence is meaningless. During the war, the knowledge that death was possibly near was a happier state of mind compared to the present. And although it is strange, not only can I see those thoughts in my memories as something beautiful, but also people become strangely happy at times like that. And the happiness we desire now is to live. It is the happiness of our family, the happiness of leisure, amusement, but sometimes there is melancholy and capricious behavior. But there is no such happiness, as it is certain that I will die. So when somebody asks me if I am afraid to die, if I get sick, I will be afraid of death. I mostly hate the idea of getting sick with cancer. It's terrifying to even think about it. All the more, because I think that I want to die for something honorable, for a cause. But it's the wrong era. In the end, I think that I will die like the author of Hagakure, on a tatami mat, having lived a life full of those kinds of thoughts. But 4 years later, Mishima took his own life. His last novel was The Abundant Sea. In the end, there is a description that resembles the scenery Yukio Mishima saw at the end of the war. The garden bathes silent, in the sun of the high noon of summer. And just before that, there is nothing in this garden, no memories, nothing. The scenery he saw the day the war ended may be an important key to deeply understand the literature of Mishima.